government to effect death penalty. Correctional services to partner other forces in 2015 training. And Northern Governor calls on UN to intervene.
This is National EMTV News with Tokana Hasavi.
A very good evening to you and welcome to Friday's news. Thanks for joining us. Papua New Guinea is one step closer to seeing the full implementation of the death penalty. A National Executive Council approved interagency committee comprising of key government agencies has been tasked to oversee the death penalty's implementation. Already canvassed are the methods of execution to be used and the processes involved when implementing each of them.
In May 2005, the National Executive Council directed the Ministers for Justice, Internal Security and Correctional Services to work with the then Law Reform Commission to review penalty provisions for serious crimes and to identify serious crimes that would attract mandatory death sentences. In 2013, necessary legislative amendments were made, listing certain serious crimes to carry the death penalty. Those serious crimes were treason, piracy, attempted piracy with actual violence, willful murders in the worst sense, aggravated rape, and robbery with violence. Since then, there have not been many cases that have drawn the sentence of capital punishment and actually been implemented. Today, there are 13 prisoners waiting on death row. Toward the end of last year, the National Executive Council endorsed the setting up of an interagency committee made up of the Departments of Justice and Attorney General, Correctional Services, Police, Health, Community Development, National Judicial Staff Services, and National Planning. The committee's job was to oversee the implementation of the death penalty. Included in the committee's proposed guidelines to effect the death penalty is the method of execution, which lists the accepted methods as hanging, the administering of anesthetics, followed by lethal injection, medical death through anesthetics and deprivation of oxygen, firing squad, and electrocution. It also recognizes that although the United Nations is against the death penalty, that the decision still lies with the government on how best it can address law and order issues in the country. And while the guidelines also detail avenues for clemency under Section 615 of the Criminal Code, there is strong indication that the death penalty could be fully implemented before the end of this year. Neville Choi, National EMTV News.
Papua New Guinea's Correctional Service is looking forward to strong commitments in 2015. At a high level, they will partner with the other two disciplinary forces for a joint leadership program aimed at setting high standards in all three disciplinary forces.
In their partnership program, the Correctional Service is exploring options for their qualified officers to undertake cadetship training with Defence Force cadet officers. In other commitments, they will establish a memorandum of understanding with the Fiji Correctional Service to work in partnership.
In the South Pacific Games this year with Police and Defence Force, review of national prison system, launching of the rehabilitation and prison industries for low-risk detainees in March this year.
The way forward for CS came after Commissioner Waipo came into office last year. The challenges he noted including a huge debt of over 23 million kina, lack of accommodation for staff, and almost all officers' houses are deteriorating from lack of maintenance. But what stood out was the drop in disciplinary standard of officers while on and off duty.
I have observed a general decline in work performance from some officers. I know that these officers have lost their standard, ethical responsibilities, and their call as correctional officers.
In line with the way forward, last year the government directed CS to review the national prison system and the department's institutional structure and legislative framework that will modernize the institute. However, it couldn't start because the funding was not released.
For food and related supplies must be given priority and be paid. And new contracts to be issued to suppliers based on current approved pricing. This must be addressed.
Meanwhile, CS Minister Jim Simatab urged the institute to prioritize their spending and should be a key department policy directive for 2015.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do consider the refurbishments of all correctional service infrastructure across the country, be it staff housing, repairs or existing jail facilities upgrade, to be of a high priority concern. Unfortunately, and I repeat, unfortunately, the lack of adequate appropriation in the department's annual budgets in recent years and ongoing for so long have prevented any real progress on this front.
Vasina Tayama, National EMTV News.
This year, Papua New Guinea will see the opening of 5 new correctional institutions. It is part of the CS Way Forward in 2015. This will also include the relocation of Manus, Kavieng and Sundown correctional institutions to new locations because of town expansion programs. Meanwhile, CS has a strong commitment to see the completion of Finchafen, Moraguena and Misimo rural lockups and the commencement of Bulolo, Pangia, Baya and Pomio rural lockup projects.
Other correctional institutions to open this year are Awa in Ella, Bundaira, in Kainantu, while consultations will be held with Gulf Provincial Administration, Bougainville, Western Province, and Jiwaka for the purpose of proposed new jails.
On a related topic, 23 correctional service women are amongst the first batch of correctional officers who passed out of the Bomana Correctional Service Institute in Port Moresby today. A total of 136 graduates is the second component of the first recruitment from 2014 and consists mainly of custodian officers.
The team of 136 graduates have successfully completed their first 4 months of theory training and are on their way to becoming probational correctional officers. The ceremony began with all 5 platoons marching into the parade ground, led by Parade Commander Chief Inspector Raymond Gideon. The parade then received the invited guests and the guest of honor NCS Minister Jim Simatab. The PNG Australia Law and Justice Program have undergone the revised CS training, which is implemented and supported by the Australian government through the PNG Australia Law and Justice Program. They now have an additional 5 months of job training and have already received their postings to various jails across the country.
We are integrating our training in line with correctional service and also in line with Australian qualifications, certificate in correctional practice.
Addressing the graduates today, CS Commissioner Michael Waipo said choosing to become a correctional officer is a commitment not only to serve the force, but a commitment to serve both the government and the people of PNG. While wishing them success in their career, he highlighted that it is up to each officer to remain faithful or bow out of the force.
It is for you to decide and choose your own path. May I highlight to you that the career you have chosen is, to some, very challenging. It can be exciting and at some time it can be boring. You have the opportunity now to make yourself become one of the best officers if you choose your path wisely.
CS Minister Jim Simatab described the PNG Correctional Service as an aging disciplinary force. He said this passing out parade marks a crucial turning point for the organization, and more experienced CS professionals are needed to impart their knowledge and skills into the new recruits joining the force.
I am especially delighted today, ladies and gentlemen, as Minister for Corrections, that I am addressing the first passing out parade of young men and women correctional officers since the inception of this government.
Meanwhile, Simatab demanded a modern and world-best correctional service and said the government has recognized the importance of all disciplinary forces. Tekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
The surrender of homebrew equipment and marijuana in Hakwange in Morobe's Menyama district has highlighted the stark reality of police manpower shortage in the district. Hakwange is several hours from Menyama station and has a high rate of drugs and alcohol consumption. There are only 2 policemen for a district that requires 40.
Hakwange is in the headwaters of the Menyama district, a heavily populated area. Yesterday, when more than 30 men pledged to give up their consumption of illegal alcohol and drugs, it brought to light the absence of strong police presence in the district. For the whole of Menyama, and that's not counting Aseki, the substation, there are only 2 policemen. One is an aging constable, the other the sergeant. It's a station that needs 40 personnel. Members of the Hakwange community say they've seen enough over the years and they've lost confidence in the systems of government.
All policemen see money lo mi pela. Noli dogs was people like Harim or straight him heavy blow or solve him down heavy blow. You must buy him 250 kina, 150 kina, 100 kina. And people are paying hard through.
Menyamia's police shortage is part of a bigger problem. 10 months into the job, Morobe's provincial police commander Kaiglo Ambane says younger policemen don't want to go to places like Menyama because there isn't a clear career path.
For example, Menyama, inogatambla position plus sergeants or kanosem we got positions allocated long and so time people like posting man and by also career motivation start.
In Morobe, there are only 200 policemen and women. That's apart from the Lay Metropolitan Command, which also has its own 200.
So within the one district, Morobe people place too much. Or same so one district and we got at least 3 or 4 sub districts attached long end. Or same so Lily district sub district we can want to have 10 personnel. I'm known by at least all can support him alone order na narpla community na community support group na all leaders na kano sem no I'm known by support him alone order long province.
The job of policing the province is a task that requires careful, long-term planning. The provincial police commander and the Menyama MP Benjamin Philip are in discussions on how best to resolve the problem. Funding has been allocated for police housing, but getting the money to the ground will take several months more. Scott Wade, National EMTV News, Lay.
The Morobe provincial government's 2015 budget of 470 million kina will be focused on improving transport infrastructure and continue investments in economic projects. Governor Kelly Naru pointed out that with the economic boom and population growth, funding to basic health and education services remain high priorities. On tonight's EMTV News special report, our reporter Sylvester Gawi takes a look at the 2015 Morobe provincial budget.
The Morobe provincial budget for 2015 was handed down yesterday afternoon by members of the Tutumang and witnessed by provincial administration staff.
We have Salamawa that still needs road to connect. We still have Kabum that still needs roads to connect Finsafen.
This year the provincial government has allocated more than 7 million kina to maintain transport infrastructures. Road maintenance will include the CRC Ring Road, Aseki to Menyama Road, Leron Wantuat, and the Wau to Kasangare Road, among others. There will be maintenance of bridges in all districts, the same with wharves and jetties for coastal districts and airstrips for remote areas.
I ask the public servants to think out of the box and choose projects that will make good name for governor and make sure that we, the members of Morobe, deliver.
Some of the other projects that are expected to be implemented this year includes funding support of more than 13 million kina for the 33 LLGs in the province, police and CIS housing, rural communication, new high schools construction, and provincial law and order are among the priorities. The national government from its 2015 budget has also allocated over 327 million kina for Morobe province for development, service delivery, and the LLG grants. Morobe, as the economic hub of Papua New Guinea, generates around 110 million kina in internal revenue. Goods and service tax generates over 95 million kina. Motor vehicle registration, 8.7 million kina. Liquor licensing, 2.5 million. mining royalties 2.5 million kina, and bookmakers 1 million kina. With significant economic growth in Lae City, the internal revenue is expected to increase in the next 10 months.
If we want to link Salamaua to Lae, and it has to come through Bulolo, I want the governor's office and also the provincial administration to pull their resources together with my DSIP under the district authority, and we build a road together.
Meanwhile, the national government continues to fund key economic projects in Morobe province. These include the second phase of the Lae Tidal Basin Project, Lae Najap Highway, Lae City Roads, and the upgrading of Engau and Wau hospitals. Sylvester Gawi, National EMTV News, Lae.
And in more news to come, Governor Jufa ramps up the Free West Papua campaign. Also, Bulolo MP furious with authorities in Morobe, and Dan Carroll raises concerns on family planning. Thanks for your company and welcome back to the news. A more collective approach is required to bring about dialogue on the West Papua issue. So far, an online petition available on social media has generated over 1,000 signatures and increasing. The Committee on Free West Papua, headed by Northern Governor Gary Jufa, has also written to the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon.
Sit and discuss with us.
The petition demands freedom for West Papua has received global support. Governor Jufa says it is all about bringing greater attention to the plight of the West Papuans, which has been ignored by the world for too long.
We can't ignore that, and I'm going to be taking this. We took a petition. In one day, we've already recorded almost 1,000 signatures. It's a worldwide petition, and it's online. It's available on my Facebook page, and it's also available on various other social media platforms. We are trying to bring this to the attention of the Western media, to mainstream media, so that they can pay attention to this.
With support from his party executives and other NGOs, he will be taking this issue to Parliament next month. The United Nations in 1965 failed the West Papuans in an act of free choice. Governor Jufa says this is a blatant mistake that must be corrected by the UN and those involved.
To confront the UN and ask that they look at this situation, this problem they created. They cannot go around the world hypocritically stating that they're concerned about human beings when they haven't shown any concern for the people of West Papua since they handed them over in 1965 against their will to Indonesia.
Papua New Guineans have been urged to petition their leaders to join in the fight for a free West Papua. Jufa acknowledged that it will be a long and difficult journey, but already his move has created waves not only in PNG but the world. He says the idea is not to go to war with Indonesia, but to establish proper dialogue to find a way forward to address atrocities in West Papua. Awareness materials on West Papua will be prepared for distribution nationwide and also during major international events to be hosted by PNG like the Pacific Games and the APEC Leaders Summit. Mickey Cavera, National EMTV News.
And on the same note, West Papuans living in Papua New Guinea should be given citizenship at no cost. Northern Governor Gary Jufa expressed his disappointment as to why they are overlooked while asylum seekers are given priority. There are an estimated 40,000 West Papuans in refugee camps in PNG. They are still being suppressed, having no access to some of the most basic necessities. Bulolo MP Sam Basil has called on the Morobe Provincial Supplies and Tenders Board to stop giving out contracts to companies that are failing to complete projects. His outburst comes after infrastructure projects at places in his district, like the Wau-Biaru Road carried out by the Morobe Provincial Administration, hasn't been completed. The same contractor has been awarded the same contract over 6 years. He says the contracts given out by the Provincial Supplies Tender Board goes to incompetent contractors.
The Bulolo district, like many others in the country, has some of the most isolated villages tucked in areas where roads are needed for effective service delivery. But some of the road links in the district has taken far too long to complete.
And also from development funding from the provincial government. We realized again, and we've...
Bulolo MP Sam Basil has lashed out on the Morobe Provincial Supplies and Tenders Board for giving contractors contracts amounting to millions of kina. Projects such as the Wau Biaru Road haven't been completed to date.
That road has been mentioned in numerous budgets for the provincial administration, but the road's never been done. And if you look at the records from Morobe Provincial Administration, they've given contracts out, 600,000, 500,000, 300,000, whatever. There's no jobs done.
Basil warned the PSTB that the trend of giving contracts to companies that don't do the job well affects the confidence of the people of Morobe towards its provincial government.
There's no need for the provincial administration to give a contract to one of their contractors and then they start bringing the machines in, operate for 1 month, do only a kilometer and run away. This is not on.
The Bulolo MP also called on the provincial administration to be creative in pooling their resources together to work with the districts. It's understood that decentralization of the provincial administration will happen when district authorities are established. Many members of parliament, including Sam Basil, feel that authorities will remove the bottleneck bureaucracy in the provincial administration, delaying development. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News, Lae.
The draft copy of the Sustainable Development Goals, the document that will succeed the UN's Millennium Development Goals, does not contain family planning as an issue that needs attention. Former Community Development Minister and current high-level task force member of the International Conference on Population Development, Dame Carol Kidu, told MTV News that this needs to be rectified. She says exclusion of family planning from the SDGs will mean less priority is given to an important area of social development in the country and in the Pacific.
The Sustainable Development Goals will replace the MDGs. Like the MDGs, it will set a global development agenda that countries will commit to. The process to develop the SDGs has begun. However, the draft report does not contain family planning. This is despite efforts to ensure that family planning is contained in these documents to improve the lives of women and girls worldwide.
Because it's really important that we remember that the Pacific region, although we are small in numbers and we're scattered, we have 22 votes in the United Nations. And I've been involved in some of the regional lobbying, and we were able to influence the regional meeting for the Commission on Population Development and get a far more progressive document that is normal.
Within the Pacific region, Papua New Guinea has the highest rate of maternal mortality. The latest numbers show 733 deaths per 100,000 women. On a day-to-day basis, that means by the end of today, 4 women would have died due to pregnancy-related causes. That means 1,400 women dying every year. Family planning features highly in PNG's efforts to improve maternal health care. Many believe it to be the most cost-effective way of reducing maternal mortality in the country.
Family planning is a high priority for our present Minister for Planning, and I commend him for that, because family planning saves women's lives and it helps to reduce poverty, and that's the facts. Whatever method is used is up to individuals, but we need to promote it.
The impact of family planning extends beyond the health of women. The impact of climate change on small islands in PNG and around the Pacific mean population control is needed now more than ever. The loss of land through climate change adds to the pressure of a fast-growing population in PNG.
Government has made a concerted effort because we had the ministerial inquiry into maternal mortality in the last government, and this present government is following up from the recommendations, and the present minister is very aware of the problems. But I think budgetary-wise, we need to put more into it, budget-wise more, and a real committed effort from every member, perhaps from their DSIP, putting something into this area of maternal mortality.
Due to the magnitude of improving maternal health and reducing maternal mortality in the nation, the government has been working with other stakeholders such as donor agencies and international organizations to curb this critical issue in the country.
SDGs are expected to be finalized by September this year. The exclusion of family planning would mean less support for a much-needed service.
I encourage our PNG leaders and our Pacific leaders to make sure that they get fight for a progressive document that will protect our women.
Sarah Aupong, National EMTV News.
Fresh concerns are being raised about the need to revive Morabe's smallholder cattle industry after years of neglect. The head of the government's agriculture station in Arab on the Makam Valley, Ralph Yamb, says there has to be a concerted effort to breed new cattle in Papua New Guinea.
In the 1970s, Papua New Guinea had a thriving smallholder cattle industry. The Makam Valley was home to some of the country's largest cattle stock. But over 30 years, poor government support to the industry, coupled with limited management expertise by local farmers, resulted in the demise of smallholder cattle farms.
All farmers, low place, only know look out in bull Macau as they used to in the past. All bull Macau, all kai.
Ralph Yamb, who currently heads the Department of Agriculture and Livestock's Arab Farm, has seen the demise not only of the cattle industry but of agriculture in general.
Before independence, country got roughly about 160,000 animals throughout Papua New Guinea. That's all time after the independence, cattle number even dropped from 160 to roughly about 65,000. Now, right now, people are sitting down roughly about 45,000, mainly all big players like Ramu Sugar, Rumion.
The government farm at Arab is one example of years of government neglect. The buildings are run down and its operation is a shadow of its glory days in the 1970s. In the last 3 years, officers have been working with limited resources to breed new livestock. On this cattle farm, there has been some success. For the first time in many years, new cattle are being born. Many of these cows are pregnant and expect to give birth this year. It is encouraging news amidst all the negative. The Morabe provincial government has since taken steps to assist local farmers regain control of the industry. But it will be a long road ahead for many. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Lae.
And now we take a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3835 US in the interbank market, and at Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.376 US, 0.4652 Australian dollars, 0.3276 euro, and 44.17 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold closed higher, coffee, cocoa, and copper closed lower. Palm oil, crude oil, and copper all closed the day lower. And lastly, on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 259 points higher, the ASX closed at 63 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 78 points higher. And plenty more to come on National EMTV News tonight, including a bizarre death in Lae and Sagari Police Barracks in Central Province in dire need of repair. Welcome back. The body of a young man in his early 20s was found on a coconut tree today at the Back Road area. He was up on the tree retrieving coconuts when he was found dead. Relatives and neighbors discovered his lifeless body amongst the coconut palm leaves. They struggled to retrieve his body after they realized that he had died. Several hours later, a ladder was used to bring the body down from the coconut tree. Police were called and the body was taken to the Angau Memorial Hospital morgue. And in Madang, police attention on a man suspected of willfully murdering his wife has been proven justified. Post-mortem results have revealed the deceased's lungs were destroyed, pointing to blunt force trauma to her abdomen as the main cause of death.
Police in Madang have completed investigation into the cold-blood murder case early this month. The case involved the husband who was suspected for willfully murdering his own wife. Madang Criminal Investigation Division told EMTV News that the suspect is now locked behind bars at Beyond Remand Center. He was charged for willful murder and appeared forementioned last Friday at the Madang District Court. Medical report after the post-mortem revealed penetrating trauma injuries from a weapon, more like a piece of timber, directly punctured the lungs after continuous contact with the deceased body. This occurred during a case of domestic violence at the home in Madang Town. The suspect is now awaiting his court hearing next month. This is the first reported death in Madang for 2015. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
The Namalibuko Incorporated landowner group from Hoskins in the West New Britain province has taken legal action against developers of New Britain oil palm and the state. The landowners claim the Malilimi land of portion 77, which the company is using for agroforestry activities like oil palm, is on customary land. They are suing for environmental damages on their land.
Case me play work long in 14 to 15 years. Now I'm gamani look lo warib lo mi plana hemi give me lo this la section 5 notice. So I'm only approving finish by one claim me play put him go only must buy me long to play company want them state.
Malilimi is a big portion of land comprising of more than 2,000 hectares. Now NBP Oil says it holds title to one particular one which was granted to it in 1984. Now that lease was granted to a company trading as Mosa Mill Limited and not NBP Oil. All right. They hold a lease to portion 2110. After our application, our Section 15 application, which was filed, we filed at the Land Titles Commission a year after that, NBP Oil successfully, with the assistance of the state and its agents, amalgamated or consolidated the land on 2110, the title on 2110, which they held, with portion 77, which is now an issue. The portion 77 is purely customary land, and that's what we are alleging. That's what the customary landowners are saying. They have not acquired it in any way or form. There were no monetary value that has passed between the developer and the landowners.
Sogeri Police Barracks in the Central Province needs a complete rehabilitation due to its rundown facilities. Deteriorating housing facilities and broken water pipes are causing water supply problems in the barracks. Police Station Commander Senior Inspector Stanley Baroro, who is on compassionate leave, spoke of the challenges they had been facing.
Senior Inspector Stanley Baroro said Sogeri Police Station is one of the oldest police stations in the country. It was built in the early 1980s. To date, many of the facilities are run down. Water pipes, bathroom facilities and sinks need maintenance.
Maintenance need in complete overall rehabilitation of the barracks. And big
Without tanks to capture rainwater for drinking and cooking, they had to purchase water bottles from shops in Port Moresby. This poses a difficult situation for them as they have to travel all the way to Port Moresby. Inspector Baroro said despite its closeness to the Rauna Dam, which supplies water to the whole of Port Moresby, they should be the first people to receive adequate water supply. Sogeri Police Station houses 11 police personnel, including those 11 from its 15-mile substation. Because Sogeri is home to many government assets and corporate businesses in the area, police presence is very important. Their area of operations covers the whole Sogeri, including the Adventure Park at 15 Mile.
We have 2 police stations. Okay, 15 Mile Police Station and substation the Sogeri. Okay, Sogeri kind of headquarters.
Police personnel are also facing housing problem. Temporarily, 2 officers have been accommodated at Yarawari Secondary School and Sogeri National High School. Meanwhile, Sogeri Road is also deteriorating with considered potholes. Inspector Baroro is appealing to the national government, local MP and authorities concerned to look into rectifying these problems. Eric Arupma, National EMTV News.
Turning overseas now, funeral service for King Abdullah, the Saudi monarch, died this morning aged 90 after suffering a bout of pneumonia. World leaders, including US President Barack Obama and the King of Jordan, are heading to Saudi Arabia to pay their respects. The king has ruled the country since the death of his half-brother in 2005.
Abdullah was the 6th Saudi monarch. His father, King Abdulaziz Al Saud, was the country's first ruler, unifying the Desert Kingdom in 1932. On his death in 1953, succession passed to his sons, the eldest, almost capable, first. By the time he took the throne, King Abdullah was already in his 80s. But in nearly a decade of ruling on behalf of his brother, he began opening the door to reform. The events of September 11th, 2001 crystallized the choice before the Saudi royal family. 15 of the 19 al-Qaeda hijackers who attacked the United States were Saudis, and al-Qaeda was also targeting the Saudi establishment and its allies. Under Abdullah's leadership, the country slowly squashed al-Qaeda, capturing or killing its leaders in the kingdom, forcing the remnants underground, and sidelining radical preachers. At the same time, the king, unlike some of his predecessors, began investing the country's oil wealth in creating jobs for the future, embarking on a massive building program. King Abdullah Economic City, just one of several such mega projects, creating cities from the ground up, providing not just accommodation for a workforce, but new industries, an acknowledgement that oil money wouldn't last forever. The king focused on ramping up education too. King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, designed to be the first co-ed university in the country. When Conservatives criticised his reforms, some were removed. But he was creating ripples of discontent. Some of his more conservative ministers, his half-brothers, bridled at his changes. They weren't the only Saudis disappointed with his leadership. Many women had hoped for greater independence under his rule, the right to drive, but their dreams were not realised during his lifetime. He had initiated forums for women to debate issues, but failed in the face of conservative critics to give them real freedom. Inside Saudi, there were limits to what he could achieve. But beyond its borders, he saw the kingdom's stature grow. The only Arab nation with a seat at the G20. Also becoming the lead Arab nation in the US-led coalition to eradicate the ultra-radical ISIS group from Iraq and Syria. He bolstered the Desert Kingdom's defense forces with a massive $150 billion spend and backed Egypt's military rulers, crushing the pan-national political Islamists, the Muslim Brotherhood, whom he saw as a threat to Saudi Arabia's future. He became the first guardian, as Saudi monarchs are known, of Islam's two holiest sites, Mecca and Medina, to meet the Pope. Despite Saudi Arabia's own relatively conservative and seemingly xenophobic interpretation of Islam, he preached religious tolerance. Criticised for being out of step by some, he will be remembered by many as being a few paces ahead.
And that report wraps up our news segment tonight. Coming up next, Trukai Sports. Stay tuned for the details.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. Following the Athletes Forum held in Port Moresby last weekend, the High Performance Division is now focused on athlete welfare. With Simon Morris as the newly appointed physiotherapist, the HPTC staff will be travelling nationwide. Their first session for this year was conducted in Kokopo for the New Guinea Islands region. The HP division plans on visiting each of the 4 regions in Papua New Guinea in the lead-up to the Pacific Games.
The High Performance Division will be travelling to Lae and Goroka in the coming days to conduct screen tests and run education sessions as part of their drive on emphasising on the importance on the welfare of athletes. These tests that will be conducted in each region will assist the HPTC in understanding the current status of athletes in the regions outside of Port Moresby. From previous tests, the HPTC concluded that Port Moresby-based athletes proved to be stronger and fitter, with the facilities on offer compared to other centres. In the Athletes Forum, Janet Gimot stressed although Papua New Guinea has been without a strong system in place to monitor the well-being of athletes, there are plans underway to establish one, with a fully equipped team to cover all elements of sports, from fitness to dieting and supplementing to psychology and physiotherapy. The High Performance Division will be extending their services to centres outside of Port Moresby. The HPTC staff will be in Lae on Saturday and Sunday and will then travel to Goroka to conduct the same tests and sessions on Monday and Tuesday, which runs in alignment with the National Boxing Trials for the Pacific Games. Lorraine Genia, National EMTV Sports.
Over to soccer, and after much anticipation and delay, Telecom launched the 2015 National Soccer League season on Wednesday night in Port Moresby. In its 10th year of supporting a semi-professional code and competition in the country, Telecom continues to support what many consider to be the world sport. This year's NSL season sees the return of Port Moresby FC and the debut of Madang FC.
Since its inception in 2006, the National Soccer League has evolved over the years. Hekari United have dominated the competition, winning its 8th title last year. Although powerhouses Raymond Gunimba and Nigel Dabinyaba have taken their experience to greater heights, Hekari's co-founder John Capinato is confident that his club will maintain their winning streak.
I think the challenge is out there for all the clubs. Hekari is not a team that is that can win all the time. I think it's beatable, and it's just up to every team that if they train hard, if they work hard, I think nothing is impossible for them to beat Hekari. But for me, I think this is the 10th season, and we'd like to maintain the winning, the victory.
This year's season sees the debut of Madang Fox FC and FC Port Moresby making their comeback.
A lot of younger players, a lot of players that haven't played NSL, but I believe that they're good enough to play NSL and they want to prove their worth.
As part of their community service obligations, leading telecommunications company Telecom launched the 2015 National Soccer League season this week, marking 10 years of supporting the semi-professional league and the development of soccer in the country.
We believe the Telecom National Soccer League has grown from strength to strength, bringing on board new insights, talent, and a whole new level of the game. And we are proud to be part of this game.
Embarking on a sports revolution in the country, Sports Minister Justin Chichenko reaffirmed that once complete, the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium is FIFA accredited and will be the home of soccer in the country.
Soccer has a great potential because it's played in most provinces in our country. And we need to embrace it, enhance it, and ensure that it goes to the next level.
Round 1 kicks off this weekend. Port Moresby FC will take on Lae City Dwellers at the Sir Ignatius Kilagi Stadium. And at the IPA Oval in Port Moresby, we'll see a double-header with Admiralty FC to face Besta FC and defending champions Hekari United to go head-to-head with Oro FC, while Madang are on a bye. Skola Sengi, National EMTV Sports.
And with news just in, NSL has deferred the matches in Port Moresby due to technical issues at the grounds till further notice. But the match in Lae will go ahead as scheduled. And Trukai Sports continues with cricket and tennis. Details after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Good to have you back with Trukai Sports. Turning overseas, the Aussie cricketers have a tough run chase on their hands as they look to remain undefeated in the one-day tri-series. Steve Smith may be regretting his decision to send England into bat, with opener Ian Bell smashing a century in the visitors' total of 8 for 303.
In Game 1, there was no holding back in Hobart for England.
Struck beautifully.
Ian Bell, the initial aggressor, before Moeen Ali took the aerial route, smashing 3 sixes in a row off Pat Cummins.
He's taken it over the rope, Sean Marsh.
The opening partnership finally broken on 113.
One too many from Moeen Ali.
Late call-up Moses Enriques then claimed James Taylor cheaply, but attack, bringing up his century off just 92 balls.
What an innings from a terrific little player.
He and Joe Root piled on another 100-run partnership, picking off and clearing the boundaries with ease.
That will be 6 of the best.
Bell eventually fell for 142, but a crafty Root kept the runs flowing. His dismissal for 69 was a turning point though, England hitting just one boundary in the final 6 overs as Australia picked up 3 wickets in the last 3 balls.
To tennis, and Roger Federer has made a stunning third-round exhibit at the Australian Open, a tournament in which he has won 4 times, and here are the highlights.
Despite attempting every trick in his bag, Roger Federer found himself down 2 sets to love to Italian Andrea Seppi.
Oh, that was a terrific pass.
17 Grand Slam titles don't come without a fight, and Federer did everything he could to claw his way back. But as match point proved, this was very much Seppi's day, Federer's earliest exit since 2001.
Stunning. One of the greatest upsets we've ever seen.
Sam Groth had seen off fellow Aussie Thanasi Kokkinakis in the second round and faces another lot of friendly fire this evening. Tomic, a more seasoned opponent, Australia sure of being represented in the 4th round. Leighton Hewitt's 19th straight Australian Open ended with a 5-set loss to Benjamin Becker. The big question is, will there be a 20th?
Yeah, I don't know. As I said the whole time, I haven't been kidding anyone. I don't know what. I've just tried to focus on what I wanted to do and get the best out of myself here this year, and I'll sit back and assess everything after this tournament.
And that ends our True Kai Sports segment tonight. The weather details after these short messages.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
This weather information is brought to you by Tablebirds.
Quick look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in southern region. Port Moresby, a shower or 2 likely. In Momase, a shower or 2 in Lae as well, and fine weather expected in Madang and Wewak. In the New Guinea Islands, cloudy periods expected in Lorengau, showers in other centres. And lastly, in the Highlands region, all centres, brief showers, then morning fog. Well, that's been National EMTV News tonight. On behalf of the news crew, I'm Tokana Hasavi. Thanks for your company. Enjoy your weekend and have a good night.